Hey guys, how's it going? MasterBucks here. Welcome to the 2021 Premier League prediction review. Yeah, everybody, it's time to see how big a fraud of a football fan I am. Once again, we are going to go through my Premier League table predictions that I gave out right before the beginning of this season. And I'll be totally honest with you, okay? About 6 to 10 weeks into this Premier League season, I was bricking it. I thought I was on for quite possibly the worst ever prediction of my entire life, and last year was not that great. The year before was pretty good, but I thought it surely can't get worse than last year. Well, I was on track until things started to swing my way. I've actually finished with 3 teams bang on, about 8 teams within 1 place of each other, and I think I've got about half the teams, maybe even more, within 2 places of each other. So I've done pretty well, but on the flip side of that, I also have some teams that are wildly off where they finished in real life. So then, let's take a look at the table. Before we do, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy what you're about to see, and let's get underway. Okay, so let me very quickly and very briefly go through this table just before we get underway with it. Every single team is ranked as to where they finished in Premier League in real life. In the prediction column is obviously the spot that I predicted they would finish in, and in the difference column is how big the difference was between where they finished and where I predicted they would finish. Sheffield United in 20th place then. I put them in 20th last season and they ended up finishing 9th. So this season I put them in 11th and they ended up finishing 20th. Honestly, at this point, I'm just like, I'm glad they're out of the Premier League because they keep fucking up my predictions every single year. It turns out I was right. I just got my timing wrong and it was this season that they finished rock bottom. Well, there you bloody go. Still though, I was shocked that they could fall so hard and that they were honestly at one point being talked about like they were going to end up one of the worst Premier League teams of all time. Right up there, or should I more or less say down there, with that Derby team. Yeah, Sheffield, massive overachievers in their first season in the Premier League, massive underachievers in their second. I don't know what to say. They're a weird team and a shit one to predict. So yeah, I'm glad they're gone. In 19th place, West Brom. And yes, your boy's got his first perfect prediction already on the board. I think we all knew that West Brom was going to get relegated, and you know, like, I gave them 19th because they were a sturdy team that I thought, okay, well, maybe they'll shithouse their way into a couple of points and being tough to break down. I mean, this is West Brom. So I gave them 19th, and well, yeah, I take no pride or pleasure in getting this one correct. I mean, a child could literally have put West Brom in 19th, and they did.
19th, wow. I agree with 19th.
18th place is Fulham, and I do feel kind of bad for Fulham that they're the team that has to go down because they play attractive football. I give props to Scott Parker for sticking to his guns and sticking to that method and that you know, philosophy of football. But when you've got the players that they have that are just not up to scratch for a Premier League level to be playing that way, it's not going to keep you up. And well, unfortunately for them, it didn't. I'm disappointed that it didn't work, but I hope that they do come back up. And I get the feeling that I think they might. If they continue to play the way that they are, hopefully they don't lose too many of their core players. And, you know, I have hopes for Fulham to hopefully come back. In 17th place is Burnley. Now, I had these guys in 12th. So, I mean, if we're talking about last season, Burnley did finish 10th. I definitely thought they would drop off a little bit compared to last season, but I didn't maybe expect this big a drop off to the point where they finished just above the relegation zone and ended up, well, they weren't really even in a relegation battle at any point this season. It didn't ever look like they were going to go down, yet they have finished 17th. Still 11 points clear of the bottom, or clear of at least a relegation zone. And even then, I don't know, Burnley was just kind of phoning it in toward the end of the season. Like, it was a bit, I don't really know. They were a bit lackluster. In 16th place, we have got Brighton. Now, I did, again, have Brighton in 16th, so that is 2 perfect picks, and we're not even out the bottom 5 or 6. Now, don't ask me how, but I actually ended up watching a fair few Brighton games pretty early on in the year, and they were just stinky. Oh my God, there was one game against Brighton and Sheffield United, which was one of the worst games of football I've ever seen in the Premier League. They stank. They definitely got a lot better about halfway through the season. They had a pretty big win against Liverpool, and then I think from that point, maybe some people started to overrate them a little bit. They had this thing where they were having a really high expected goals every single game, but they weren't actually converting it into actual goals, which is normally a problem. I mean, like, I'm hearing that Graham Potter is apparently possibly in line for the Spurs job. That would be mad. I honestly, I don't think he's a bad manager by any stretch, but I think that is a massive overreaction, or I think they're definitely overrating him possibly a little bit, or it's at least way too soon. I mean, Brighton actually do have a handful of pretty decent players, so for their position in the table, I don't exactly think he's, you know, working miracles to get them where they are. But I don't know, either way, I'm ranting a bit. Let's move on to the next team, which is 15th place, Southampton. Now, I don't think Southampton's fall from the start of their season compared to where they finished is really being talked about enough. Can we please remember that Southampton was top of the Premier League? They were top. They had the whole stop the count meme and everything. Like, they had that shit. They were coming off the back of one of the best turnarounds, I think, in Premier League history. They got absolutely whacked by Leicester last season and then completely turned their form around and were amazing. They started this season off great, and that's why I put them up as high as I thought they were going to finish, in 10th. I honestly don't know how Southampton are finishing this Premier League season only just above 40 points. It really staggers me. They had such an amazing turnaround, only to then just lose it all and get whacked 9-0 again. Like, I don't know if Ralph Hasenhüttl should stay. It feels like it's a up and down with Southampton. So who knows? Maybe they're stinking now, but they'll be sick again in like 3-4 months. I don't know. In 14th place, we had Crystal Palace. I had them as the other team that I thought might get relegated. Instead, they finished 14th. And really, I don't feel too bad about getting them, 4 or so spots off, because there were too many question marks surrounding Crystal Palace at the beginning of the season. Was Eddie Howe going to take over for Hodgson? Was Zaha going to go? That was obviously the big one. It seemed very likely that he was, but it feels like for the last 3-4 years now, we've been like, is Zaha going to leave? And he never does. I should just assume that man is going to be 37 and still balling for Palace. So yeah, they just had a really solid start at the beginning of their year and just steered clear of danger really for the entirety of the season. I don't think at any point they were really looking like, oh, they might go down. So they just steered clear of danger, didn't really do much else, had a handful of other players come out and do quite well, like Eze, and even Benteke toward the end of the season has not been that bad. So yeah, Palace just sort of did their business this season, and that was about it. 13th place, Wolves. This is one of, and so far, apart from Sheffield United, the one that I've really misjudged. And even then, I think it's a little unfair, because Wolves probably weren't going to finish in 7th like I had them, but I thought they would definitely finish at least like 9th or 10th. If it wasn't for losing Jota, obviously he hadn't gone at the time I'd made my video. Obviously Jimenez, his horrific injury, and Doherty as well. They ended up losing a couple of key names in their team. And I really don't think like losing that many key players and to a team like that is really going to help massively. But yeah, just an in general disappointing season, even with those players missing. You probably would have expected them to get at least a little higher than 13th. I mean, for Christ's sakes, Newcastle United has finished higher than Wolverhampton Wanderers. How in the world has Newcastle United managed to finish in 12th? I can't believe it. I was pessimistic. I thought we'd finish 13th. And even then when I made the video, I'm like, oh, when we get relegated, this is going to hurt. No, and we somehow finish above 13th. Willock getting 7 goals in a row. How the hell does that happen? Most goals in a row for a Newcastle player equal with the Alan Shearer. Are we serious here? I gotta tell you, like, when we started our season, we looked pretty good. We looked decent. Then we lost a few key players, like Callum Wilson, Alan Saint-Maximin, some names that were really integral to our team, and we were stinky without them. And then Alan Saint-Maximin came back, followed very shortly by Callum Wilson, and our whole team just changed. Our whole dynamic, our whole demeanor. We are a completely different team with just those players in it. It is ridiculous how much those two really are, responsible for how fucking well we have done toward the end of the season to finish where we have. But yeah, moving on to 11th place, Aston Villa. Now, I had these guys in 15th. I actually thought that they'd finish a lot higher last season. I thought that, like, hype would elevate them because they're a big club coming up to the Premier League for the first time in a while, and there would be that would propel them forward. That did not work out at all. But yeah, Grealish turned up in a big way. So too did others, like surprisingly Ross Barkley toward the beginning of the season, and obviously Ollie Watkins. So, fantastic get for them, he was. So yeah, I knew they'd improve on last season. That's why I put them higher. But 11th place, I was not expecting that. Fair play, Aston Villa. 10th is Everton. Now, Everton, Ancelotti, great coach, but it's still a team, Everton, that's filled with real lackluster big money signings. And that's all I look at it. Didn't really have a super amount of hope that Everton were going to be able to challenge any of the top 6. And I thought that Wolves and Leicester were going to pip spots off of them. Obviously, Wolves didn't work out, but then we had West Ham come through out of nowhere, and we'll talk about them later. And even, I don't know, Leeds United out of nowhere managed to even get ahead of them. So yeah, Everton finishing in 10th. I had them in 9th. Nearly got that one right. But Leeds United in 9th place, I must say that I did not see them getting top 10 in no way. Again, like I said before, Aston Villa, a big club playing electric, attacking football. And I thought once they came up to the Premier League that they would have had some hype and they would have finished a little higher up the table, that they would have gone that push. And in the end, Aston Villa nearly got relegated, like I said before. So I kind of thought the same thing was maybe going to happen to Leeds and that they'd finish a little bit lower toward the table. I ended up putting them in 17th, only just surviving. And now look at them, 9th place. But again, can you blame me? Who the hell would have thought that guys like Patrick Bamford would go off in the way that they did? Leeds, for me, in top 10 is almost as big a shock as how high West Ham have gone. But like either way. Arsenal in 8th place is just crazy. I mean, I had them in 5th place, so I definitely didn't think that they wouldn't be getting European football, or at least Champions League and Europa League. This is mad. They started awfully. I mean, they were for the first time in a long time, I actually genuinely, seriously thought we were going to have a top 6 team in an actual legit relegation battle. They were 15th. Or 16th, I think, actually, even at one point. They've had a terrible home record. I know that a lot of Arsenal fans are really pissed off about that. But since the turn of 2021, they've actually not been that bad. I think their form in the last, 10, 15 games is actually pretty high up for most Premier League teams. So, yeah, I don't actually think, even though they've finished where they've finished, and it's not good at all for Arsenal to be finishing in 8th place, I don't think it's as disastrous as maybe some people would have you believe it is. Like, I do actually think that this could be a pretty good opportunity for Arsenal to sort of maybe build their young core, build a bit of an identity. Now that they don't have any European football, they can focus on the league. They can build that young core, that identity, like I was saying. And then, obviously, you're not going to really make any big money signings in this window. I mean, you don't have any European football to lure any teams in. So, I think it's going to be a hard season for Arsenal next season, but it could be a very crucial one where they finally get themselves sorted for the future. And if they don't pull it off next season, if they continue to fall, we could just see an Arsenal capitulation. Tottenham in 7th place. Again, so close. Oh, so close with this one. And if it wasn't for West Ham United out of nowhere, I would have gotten it right. But yeah, Tottenham finished in 7th. And I gotta be honest, I was nervous that Tottenham were actually going to finish way higher. I think we all are very quick to forget that they were like top in November, or even maybe I think December at one point. Kane and Son were absolutely tearing it up with all the goals and assists they were getting. Like, I thought, oh my God, Mourinho is going to somehow pull Tottenham Hotspur to their first maybe Premier League title, even though it was still somewhat early days. But it turns out the whole Mourinho 3rd season thing was fast-tracked into his 2nd or 1.5 seasons. I don't even know. But they just fell off completely. Ryan Mason took over and, well, just, yeah, another capitulating season for Spurs, sadly. Now, finally, we get to 6th place West Ham United. This is the team I really want to talk about, okay? Because I put this team in 14th, all right? I got them completely wrong by 8 spots, all right? But I will have you know that at the beginning of the season, when I put West Ham in 14th, I was actually getting shit for putting them too high. Okay, how quick we forget. But they got their stuff together in a massive way. I actually said this about West Ham and David Moyes at the beginning of the season. I just have this weird feeling that there might be a West Ham potential, almost David Moyes resurgence. Maybe David Moyes might potentially have a chance to rebuild his reputation in the Premier League this season. And what a quote that is, if you don't mind me saying so. Keep in mind, when I said that, I did not think they would end up getting European football in any stretch of the imagination, let alone top 10. So, unbelievable season from West Ham. They are by far the biggest overachievers this season, bar none. In 5th place, Leicester City. Once again, Leicester City is just going to miss out on Champions League. I had them in 8th place. I was under the impression that maybe Europe was going to possibly stretch them a little bit thin. And obviously with Brendan Rodgers taking over as his first full season with them, I don't know. It definitely turned into a season where, you know, managers that had a bit of a stigma about them, like Brendan Rodgers and David Moyes, had great fucking years, didn't they? 2021 has completely changed the image of both Brendan Rodgers and David Moyes. But yeah, Leicester City in 5th. They should have finished top 4. They should have got Champions League. But in a way, I'm maybe kind of happy that they didn't. Because all the teams in the top 4, I correctly predicted to be in the top 4. Maybe not perfectly, like Chelsea in 4th. I thought they'd finish in 3rd, so 1 spot off there. And they could have very well finished in 3rd on the final day. It just went to Liverpool. And as for Chelsea, well, it's good for them that they got top 4. Because, Christ, they nearly bottled the FA Cup final, the Women's Champions League final, if you really care about that, and then the top 4 to get Champions League again next season, and then they got the Champions League final. Imagine if they lost that and failed to get Champions League. It would have been a disaster. Absolute disaster, but thankfully that did not happen. They've really looked great since Tuchel took over, but unfortunately for them, it feels like in the last couple of games or so, over the last month, they have dropped off in form, and I'm nervous for them going into this Champions League game. I thought it was going to be really close. I actually had them as maybe the team I thought would win if I had to pick one. But now, I don't know if they're going to get the job done. Liverpool in third, of course. For them to even finish in third, I know that they are the reigning champions and that they had a, you expect a lot from the reigning champions, clearly. But for Liverpool to finish in third, I've got to be honest, I think it's an accomplishment. Every single team gets injuries, of course, but the fact that Liverpool had so many injuries in such a key area, all in one area, going to all these players that all play the same position. Like, okay, Virgil van Dijk, Gomez, Fabinho and Matip, I think together, all centre-back CDM type players, all together missed about 100 Premier League games. That is such a horrid run of injuries in such a specific area that they had to experiment, throw players that aren't typically centre-backs into those positions or play 4th, 5th, 6th choice players. Like, they had a tough run, and yet they still managed to come third. I did also remember saying this about Liverpool in a COVID season. I think some of the, better teams in the Premier League, and even maybe some mid-table teams, who knows, can go to Anfield now and think that, oh, well, this is just some empty stadium. It's not the same atmosphere. And I think they will lose, I don't know how many games at Anfield, but they definitely won't be undefeated throughout the entire season. Yeah, that I thought they would lose at least 1 or 2 games in Anfield, not 5 or 6 in a row. That was one of the craziest things ever. And to think if it wasn't for that, they're easily getting second with the ridiculous run of injuries they had. I got to be honest with you, Liverpool for me, if I had to pick a team right now to win the Premier League next season, I'm not going to, but I'm just saying, if I had to, I think a fully fit Liverpool with fans back is probably going to win the Premier League next season. Not even Manchester City. Like, I'd make that call right now, but I'm not going to. We'll wait a few more months until the start of the next season. Second place, obviously, Manchester United. I had them in 4th. They have gone and finished in 2nd. They had a bit of a slower start, which I think definitely hurt their chances of maybe being in a position where they could have more realistically pushed Manchester City. I mean, let's remember, at the very beginning of the Premier League season, before Arsenal were the big basket case, it was actually Manchester United. We thought, oh, hang on a minute, they're not getting off to a good start at all. I think they too were as low as 15th after like 6 or 7 games played, but yeah, for me, I thought they've had a brilliant turnaround. Ollie's doing, about as well as he possibly could have. Manchester United, if they get in Sancho, I think they're going to be a real threat. They just need that quality down that right-hand side. I mean, we'll see if they manage to do it or not. And whatever the hell happens in the transfer window, but I think Bruno Fernandes was probably the 3rd best player of the season. I'd probably give that to Ruben Diaz or maybe Harry Kane. But yeah, Bruno Fernandes, if he'd maybe done a little bit more against top 6, I think he would have been maybe arguably player of the season. But no, of course, the champions were Manchester City. 2021 Premier League champions. Boy, I thought they earned it, especially with that ridiculous run in the middle of the season where they won like just 15, 20 games in a row, and no one really even seemed to notice or care until they had won like 10 or 12. This was such a ridiculously close Premier League season, about a third of the way in. Anyone could have won it. And then out of nowhere, halfway through the season, Man City just did a Man City and just blew everyone out the water. I did predict them to win. I thought that they would respond after Liverpool won the Premier League. I definitely didn't think Liverpool would have such horrendous, unfortunate luck with injury and whatnot, and that they would just capitulate at home for such a ridiculously long stretch. But so a lot of things worked in my favor for this Man City pick, but your boys done it. Manchester City have gotten up, and that is a correct prediction. So at the end of the day, what do I think about my predictions and this table as a whole? For me, the only picks that I feel a lot of shame about are Sheffield United, putting them so high up, and maybe, I don't know, possibly I could have put more respect on Leeds instead of having them in 17th. I definitely could have put them higher. And I don't know, West Ham in 6th, like I never would have seen that coming. I only really think there's like 2 or 3 teams in there I'm pretty disappointed about. Everyone else may be 4 or 5 positions off, but I'm not that disappointed about. I think that this is actually not that bad. I think I've done fairly well here. Got a couple of bang on, got half the teams within at least 2 spots. I am going to walk away from this thing with a dub. It's definitely better than last season, that is for sure. But there we go then, people. I'm chalking it up as a dub. It's not a fat dub. It's not a massive dub, but it's just a dub. It's a W. It is what it is. I'm 28 years of age. You get what I'm trying to say. I'm fine with the predictions. I'm looking forward to the beginning of next season, but of course, before then, I'm looking forward to the Euros, and you can probably expect a Euro prediction video coming out in the next week or so when we get a bit closer to the tournament. But lads, if that is something that you'd be keen for, or just any football/FIFA content at all, then make sure you subscribe, and of course, make sure you like the video if you have indeed enjoyed. Plenty more like that coming around the corner, but lads, that is going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is MasterBucks. Catch you next time, and bye-bye.